Oh, hello and welcome to Anxiety Hacks. I'm so pleased you're here. So it's
Hi, Kate.
great to have you all join us. Now, before we begin, I just want to tell you about my book that came out in November called Anxiety Hacks. It's got proven techniques and tools and tips in there to be able to help you to be able to, work with those difficult feelings and behaviors connected with your anxiety. And also next month in May 2023, the audiobook will be out on all the major platforms. So listen out for that. Now, our guest today, oh my gosh, our guest is Susie, and she is a Canadian author. She's a public speaker and a singer-songwriter, and she's currently living in the UK. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 9 and has been collecting illnesses ever since. I love that. With a regular newspaper column called Expert Patient, here to help. Susie is passionate about helping people go from patient to person at the doctor's office. She has a book which is out now, and it's called Help the Doctor Help You. 31 secrets and tips for self-advocacy to get the best at your appointments. So it's out now and it's on Amazon. And Susie is working also on her memoir about her chronic illness life. So, oh my gosh. Well, Susie, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So let's begin. So tell us, tell us a little bit about, your life and your difficult struggle with illness, and that led you to writing your book.
Well, it all started at the age of 9 with a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes and almost dying at that point. Got pretty serious. But thankfully, I'm still here. And so since then, I've had some complications from that, including retinopathy, and I lost the sight in both my eyes on separate occasions and needed surgery to have that recovered. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
that surgery, let me tell you, was a bit of a trip. And I don't know if you want details, but let's just say that my left eye, the first surgery, the freezing didn't totally work, and I saw the vacuum cleaner inside my eyeball from the inside. Anyway, I thought I was in the twilight zone, but I can see, so it was worth it. And the second eye had some issues as well. I didn't see anything, but I felt it, so that was not a lot of fun. But that's a result of the diabetes. And also I have neuropathy, both peripheral, which is, kind of hands, feet, the stuff at the ends, and autonomic, which means that some of my inner organs that are supposed to do their job on their own don't properly. So for me, that's my gastrointestinal system. And that got so bad at one point that they actually implanted a gastric pacer, so a little machine into my belly wall, and wormed wires up to my stomach to try to stimulate movement. And it was a disaster and caused me debilitating pain, and it had to come out 2 years later. So that was not the best of times either. But in my early 20s, I also, not attached to the diabetes, had a prolactinoma, which is just right kind of in the front of the brain, behind your forehead. And so I needed brain surgery to have that out. And yeah, that was a treat as well. And then I had things like fibromyalgia, and I had a lump in my liver, which thankfully has gone away. And most recently, I was diagnosed with ME, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. And that actually got so bad a couple of years ago, kind of the first year of COVID, that I was absolutely debilitated. I had no strength to press the buttons on my insulin pump. I couldn't lift a fork. I couldn't sit up on my own. And my husband had to absolutely do everything for me. And so the two darkest times in my life were when the period of time when I was told I had eye disease, and the months between then and having the surgeries, kind of losing my sight and feeling like I might be a blind person. And then also during that time, because of the ME, I was in body-wide pain, and I thought, if this is my life now, I want off the bus. And so that was a pretty dark time. So I say all of that, say I've been to thousands of appointments, and I've had some, pretty difficult diagnoses, and my story is still unfolding. Um, but I'm here to tell the tale, and in a better place now in general. So that's kind of it in a very brief nutshell.
Yeah. So you had some difficult times, some kind of dark times,
Mm,
which, I can't imagine. It must have been very difficult for you.
yeah, it,
It,
they were. I never got to the point of like, okay, here's my plan. I'm going to end my life. But I did get to the point where I thought I might get to the point where I need a plan to end my life, because I thought, if this is it, it was too hard. It was too much. And thankfully I did recover from that. But I did during that, not that, when I was at my most ill, I wasn't capable of making a phone call. But as I slowly started to improve, I did reach out for therapy, which wasn't the first time in my life. Um, There'd been a couple of other times when my health problems were piling up that I did reach out for therapy. And at first I resisted it. And now I would like to scream to the mountaintops for everyone to hear that, even if you're not at your worst, therapy can be terribly helpful. So,
yeah.
yeah, so I did definitely reach out, and I had some friends that I told as well that I was struggling. And one of them had the response of, I don't want to hear this. And the other, as in it was too much for them to handle. And the other had the response of, that makes total sense. And so it was very interesting going through that as well. So,
Yeah. And that's what's led you to write your book.
yeah. So because of all those appointments and all my interactions with medical professionals,
Yeah.
I, I, I recently looked back and I thought, I have a great medical team here in the UK, and I had a great medical team in Canada. In fact, my GP, when we go back, I often pop in just to say hello, catch up with his assistant, see pictures of her daughter. And I've had these really strong relationships, and I have felt so cared for by my doctors. And I thought, I see online so many people saying they don't hear me, they don't listen, they don't care. And I haven't experienced that. So I was trying to figure out kind of, well, I don't think it has to be that way, and why. And I realized that there are ways that we as patients can set the tone for a doctor's appointment. We can do things that earn respect from the doctor, and also humanizes them. Like, for example, you can walk into a doctor's office and say, um, you're running late today. Or like, I'm frustrated because I've been sitting out there for an hour. Or you
Mm.
can walk in and you can say, I see you're running late today. I hope you're not too stressed out. Because guess what? That doctor is human. They have problems. They maybe just gave some bad news to the person ahead of you. They maybe are running late for their own child's soccer pickup or
Yeah.
whatever. So I feel passionate that we can have a good experience at the doctor's office usually. And there is a time to break up with them. Sometimes that can happen, but I think that we have more power than we realize to have those
Yeah.
strong relationships.
But
So
I think also for many people, it can be very anxiety provoking, just even, picking up the phone and calling the doctor's office.
absolutely. I mean, first of all, you've got a problem, right? Or you wouldn't be calling the doctor, and you are not feeling well. You're scared about why you're not feeling well. And then you've got to walk into an office, sometimes with someone you don't know, or maybe you haven't connected with well. And there is an automatic authority that a doctor holds, or, I mean, They do hold an authority as far as their knowledge and their experience. But I think that we can foster teamwork rather than it just be like the doctor telling us, or, rushing us, or not listening to us. And yes, I mean, there's anxiety around the illness, and there's anxiety around that person in
So what
that
do you
white
feel
coat.
that somebody could do though, if they, if they felt
Well,
really anxious going to see the doctor?
I mean, some of the things I've written about in the book include simple as take someone with you, because first of all, it's support. There's going to be someone that you trust sitting there beside you. Hopefully you trust them. Take someone you do. And also they're a second set of ears. So they are going to listen to what the doctor has to say and perhaps interpret it different than you as the patient who's worried already. Maybe they say something like, well, it could be, and it's not good news. And you hear that as, oh my goodness, I've got cancer. And your friend might go, well, actually, that's not what the doctor said. That,
Yeah.
there's a small chance, is how I heard it. So I think the support of that person and just that second set of ears is
Yeah.
important and
So
can
that's a
help
good
with
idea,
that.
having somebody with you.
Yeah, and if you can't take someone, I recommend recording the appointment, because again, I feel like if you listen back to it, you might it only takes the doctor to say one thing that throws your mind off track and you're stuck on it and you don't hear the rest of it.
Yeah.
So if you can record it and listen back, then A, you're not missing information, and B, you again might hear it differently when you're a bit more calm than you would in that moment. I remember I had one appointment where I was so ill, and the doctor was willing to think outside of the box and said, I can admit you into palliative care and get you on ketamine. Well, all I heard was palliative care and ketamine. I have no idea what what happened in the rest of that appointment. My husband was there. Thankfully, he's, pretty stable-minded and was able to, report back the rest of it to me and whatever. But it just takes, one thing to throw you off track. And just, I think, being prepared, feel also like you can follow up. When you leave your appointment, if the doctor said, okay, I'm going to send you for an MRI, ask them, when do you expect those results to be? Because you will feel more empowered knowing, okay, they said 2 weeks. It's been 16 days. I can call now and check. Sometimes results get, slip through the cracks, or perhaps reception just hasn't gotten to that phone call yet because it isn't urgent. It's not bad news, and they haven't called you. Meanwhile, you're at home stressing out about what that result might be. It is okay to make that phone call and say, are the test results back? And can you tell me what they are? And so right away, usually the result is not as bad as we think it's going to be. And I was just talking to a doctor yesterday, not as a patient, but in regards to a podcast. And she was saying that, people leap to the cancer diagnosis, but most of the time, that is not what people are dying from. It's not cancer. That's not the biggest threat. And some of the other things that we do struggle with that can be life altering are things that we might have power to actually do something about in our lifestyle and take some control. But so those are some of the tips. I will throw out a little bonus. Picture the doctor naked. I mean, don't do that. But what I'm trying to say is try to see them as a person with their own set of, problems and relationships, and they aren't just an authority, they are a person. And so if you can kind of change that view of them, it might bring that anxiety down a notch, I think.
Yeah.
And then as a chronic illness patient, I've learned some tricks. First of all, I've been through cognitive behavioral therapy, and I find the process of figuring out, what is true, what is facts, is there things to support those facts? If not, you can come out with a better balanced viewpoint of the problem. I use breathing exercises to calm my nervous system down, and that has got me through a lot, both pain and stress.
And what sort of breathing exercises do you find the most beneficial?
I think most bang for buck, I use box breathing. And so, I mean, your audience can look that up or you can talk about it. But I just find it absolutely immediately brings down that anxiety level. It might not wipe it totally out, but just, you know, 30 seconds of box breathing can make more of a difference than you can imagine, let me tell you. So certainly I put that into action.
Yeah. And I think it's important that people understand with their breathing, the power of how to do it, because a lot of people know about, the importance of, taking a nice deep breath to be able to calm themselves. But um, if you were to, the way that you should do your breathing is to breathe in for less time than you breathe out, because you're accessing that parasympathetic nervous system when you breathe out. And so we have the sympathetic. We have two nervous systems that run through our bodies. We have the sympathetic and then the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is connected to that anxious part of us. So we do that when we breathe in. But when we breathe out, we access the calm, natural you, the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's really important to remember to breathe in for the count of 4, and then hold your breath for, the count of 8 if you can, and then breathing out for much longer. So breathing out again for the count of 8, all the way down to the base of your tummy, is going to access that calmer part of you. So that's the real key to be able to use your breathing to be the most beneficial to be able to calm yourself.
Mm. And if I could give a practical example of the power of breathing, if you folks have ever had a cramp in your foot or in your side or whatever, try taking a few deep breaths and see what happens. That cramp will go away. And you're talking to someone who has, I struggle with, foot cramps especially a lot. But I realize whenever a cramp happens, it's that pain. You automatically hold your breath and tense up.
Yeah.
I tell myself now, breathe. And guess what? That is the only thing that helps that cramp go away. So it's just a very physical way of seeing the power of the
Yeah,
breath. Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
Breathing into that cramp and then breathing out and letting it go.
Hmm.
Yeah. And imagine and visualize it in your mind's eye.
Yeah.
Seeing those muscles relax and release. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
I love that. And so what other suggestions have you got for people? So we've got the CBT and the breathing.
Well, I I feel that it's very important to embrace your feelings. So if you're feeling anxious, recognize that. And recognize it, that your body and your mind is trying to tell you something, and embrace it. And I think I found that when I am not ashamed, when I name it, um that it loses its power.
Yeah.
And so I think we're in a world of a lot of positivity being pushed on us. Think good thoughts and you'll get over it, or just stay positive. And I think we're not doing ourselves a favor when we ignore those harder feelings, because they're all there for a reason and they're all
Yeah.
telling us something. And so when we can actually embrace them, I think it's a kindness that we give to ourselves. And I find that when I hit the wall, sometimes when it comes to, usually it's the diabetes that makes me hit the wall, because it's a 24/7 disease that needs managing. But when things pile up, and then the diabetes is just like,
Another
I've had
thing on
enough.
top. Yeah.
Yeah, about every 6 months, I hit the wall and I give myself a day, and I'll say to my husband, "This is the day." And I might go for a walk with a friend, and I'll say, "This is the day." And maybe I'll walk with myself and scream out to the hillside, or I will allow myself to stay in bed a bit longer, or just
Yeah.
cry as much as I need to cry. But I find then after that day, the next day is just so much different. And so I'm really a believer in that. Also, I would say, I've learned, speaking of going for a walk with a friend, that sometimes talking with a friend um, is better than talking to my husband about my fears or my issues, because he's a fixer, and he, wants to figure out the problem, find a solution. And A, sometimes there aren't solutions, and B, sometimes that's helpful, but sometimes I just need to process my feelings.
You
And
just
so
need to
I
talk about those feelings and have those feelings and allow yourself to have those feelings.
release
Yeah.
them. Exactly. And I find that I personally am a verbal processor. And so if I talk with a friend who's really good at listening and affirming and not trying to fix, I find, that to be quite helpful.
Mm, mm.
So, that's, I guess that the idea in that is absolutely vent and talk to someone, but think about who you're going to talk to and what you're hoping to accomplish from that conversation.
Yeah, and find that
Because
person that you can trust that
exactly.
will listen to what you have to say,
Yeah.
without judgment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
as far as
what about some books? Have you got any books that you would
yes,
recommend people?
I well, okay, so uh, I'm a writer and a reader, and so I found it hard to narrow it down, but I would say at at one point, a therapist actually suggested The Power of Now by
Oh,
Eckhart
yes,
Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle.
Yes, and at that point in my life, it was exactly what I needed. And I would say that I don't necessarily I think there are other ways of looking at things that are valid as well, but certainly um just wow, the power of now and thinking about the past as not existing and the future also doesn't exist. It's we literally only have this moment and that's all we got to deal with. So that was
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
I find that reading biographies is helpful for me because I find a relatability in them, even if they're not talking about perhaps my actual problems. There's usually an element of the struggle. And so I find the struggle to be familiar sometimes. And you feel less alone and
Absolutely, and
often
it's good to hear other people, or most people, whether they depends whether they talk about it or not. We have or have been through, really difficult, dark times.
mm, yeah. Yeah, and some
Talking
specific
about it.
ones that I found helpful, and again, they're not even necessarily my problems, but Maria Hornbacher, her book called Madness, Bipolar Life. And then she's got another one about eating disorders, which was good as well. Um, Portia de Rossi, Unbearable Lightness. I don't have an eating disorder, but that book really resonated, and it just I felt like I was inside her head as far as her struggle, and again that was relatable.
Yeah,
Lily
in my
Al,
first book, Bulimia Sucks. So the first 25% is my memoir of what I
mm,
went through when I had bulimia for 15 years. And it is,
right,
it's, I think it's, helpful, for people to, particularly that have an eating disorder, to connect and hear, that they're not alone, that, well, there's so many people that have eating disorders, but to be able to read it
mm.
and hear their difficult journey is very powerful.
Yeah, and then I also find books like Keep Moving by Maggie Smith. It's more of a like she's a poet as well as she writes prose as well, but it's just little clips. Think of an Instagram post compiled in a book about,
Mm.
how to just take that next step and just keep moving. And I find those to be helpful because it's not a big commitment. It's like you can just read a page in a few
Dip in and
seconds.
out. Yeah.
But yeah, it really, really provokes thought. And I mean, of course, my book is hopefully
So
going to be
tell us
helpful for
about
people.
your book,
Yes,
Susie.
yes, yes. Oh, I should say the most gifted book I think I've given people is the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. And it's got
Right.
visuals as well, but I found that whether young or old to be very powerful. So I gift that one a
And
lot.
who wrote that one?
Oh shoot, I didn't write that down. It's a
Well,
man.
we could look it up anyway.
Yeah, sorry. I should have done that, but it's just really oh, I don't want to do it injustice, but it's powerful. Let's just say that when it comes to how we see ourselves and, coping with the things thrown our way. But yes, my book. So yeah, what it is, it's, there's the 31 secrets and tips, and then I've layered in stories from my life. So not for every tip, but every third tip or so that kind of shows it in action. But it's got slight memoir-ish vibes to it as well because you actually see when it works. And I've put one or two examples of when I did something in a way that I wish I hadn't. I complained about something inconsequential and set the tone for the appointment in a way that, like, why did I do that? So, hey, I'm still learning too. And there's always room for improvement. And
Yeah.
I want you to know that I don't think I have all the answers. These are just some things that I found that have made a difference in my journey in the medical system, which, is hard enough. But it's really about building strong relationships, but also, it's got some practical things. And, the first tip is be on time. And that seems so basic, but I think I hear people say, well, why should I be on time? I always wait for 45 minutes before I have my appointment anyway. And I'll tell you, there's a reason to be on time, even if you know you're going to wait. Reception is watching. And I once had a doctor tell me, oh, yeah, like my assistant is paying attention, because if someone calls and needs, says they need an appointment, she's probably more likely to squeeze in someone who's going to be there on time or early, and, isn't just not showing up and whatever. So there's a bit of kind of the, I hesitate to say psychology, but reasons to why these tips are important layered in there as well. So that you can see that, oh, that's, it is going to make a difference long term.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get this book. It sounds fascinating.
Oh, well, it was a passion project for sure. And I just have people say to me so many times, they'll have an appointment and they'll say, oh, like, did the test come back? Oh, no. Well, did you call? Well, no, I didn't, I didn't know I could. Or, well, the doctor said, so I guess I have to do this. It doesn't seem right, but I guess because the doctor said it. And I just, no, like we have the ability to have some say, and this book will help you actually get heard. Hopefully that's the goal. And I feel like I'm less rushed. Like, they don't rush me, and they take the time, and they're actually trying to solve my problems because they care about me as a human and not just a number. So yes. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So Susie, how can people find you?
Well, okay. So my book is on Amazon, wherever there is Amazon.
Help the Doctor Help You, Susie Schwartz.
Help you. That's right. And let's see. Will you be putting anything in the show notes, Kate?
Yes. So all the details will be in the show notes, but
perfect.
I just wanted to sort of
do
the main area where people can contact you.
My website is lesshealthstress.com, and I will give you a Linktree link that has everything in there. It's got links to the book. It's got, other podcast episodes. It's got my newsletter. I do have a newsletter is not the right word. It's more of a support letter once a week. It's just short. It's called Convos with Carlos. He's my little chihuahua. And it's one care, one quote, and one question. And so that comes out once a week. And so you can sign up for that there if you want. But it's all in that one link, so you can easily find whatever you need there.
Yeah, great.
I'm most active, I will say, as far as social media goes, on Instagram, and I'm known as medical_miss_stress. So, but that's in the link as well.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where you're most active, on Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Oh my gosh. Well, Susie, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it was my pleasure. You know what? I really, it's an honor to have a place to be able to talk about this. And I appreciate that you're willing to share it with your listeners. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being so, so honest and sharing those, the difficult journey that you've been through and are going through. So we wish you, so much good health.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody for listening to today's episode. And before we go, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes so you never miss an episode. And it would be great if you could leave a review also wherever you listen, on Spotify or Google Podcasts or Buzzsprout or wherever you may listen. That would be fantastic. So thank you to everybody, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next episode.